there's a lot of promising work that, even though signals are very different,
Right.
like the actual if you have embeddings of the languages, they're actually trying to communicate similar type things. Is there something you can comment on that? Like, where is there promise to that? And everything you've seen in different cultures, especially like remote cultures, that this is a possibility?
No.
That we can talk to whales?
I would say yes. I think it's not crazy at all. I think it's quite reasonable. But there's this sort of weird view, odd view, I think, that to think that human language is somehow special. I mean, it is. Maybe it is. We can certainly do more than any of the other species. And maybe our language system is part of that. It's possible. But people have often talked about how human Chomsky, in fact, has talked about how only human language has this compositionality thing that he thinks is sort of key in language. And it's the problem with that argument is he doesn't speak whale. And he doesn't speak crow, and he doesn't speak monkey. He's like they say things like, "Well, they're making a bunch of grunts and squeaks," and that the reasoning is like, that's bad reasoning. Like I'm pretty sure if you asked a whale what we're saying, they'd say, "Well, I'm making a bunch of weird noises."
Exactly.
And so it's like this is a very odd reasoning to be making, that human language is special because we're the only ones who have human language. I'm like, well, we don't know what those other. We just don't. We can't talk to them yet, and so there probably a signal in there, and it might very well be something complicated like human language. I mean, sure, with a small brain, in lower species, there's probably not a very good communication system, but in these higher species where you have what seems to be abilities to communicate something, there might very well be a lot more signal there than we might have otherwise thought.
But also, if we have a lot of intellectual humility here, and somebody formerly from MIT, Neri Oxman, who I admire very much, has talked a lot about, has worked on communicating with plants. So, like, yes, the signal there is even less than, but like, it's not out of the realm of possibility that all nature has a way of communicating, and it's a very different language, but they do develop a kind of language through the chemistry, through some way of communicating with each other. And if you have enough humility about that possibility, I think you can. I think it would be a very interesting, in a few decades, maybe centuries, hopefully not, a humbling possibility of being able to communicate not just between humans, effectively, but between all of living things on Earth.
Well, I mean, I think some of them are not going to have much interesting to say.
But you could still.
We don't know. We certainly don't know.
I think if we're humble, there could be some interesting trees out there.
Yeah. Well, they're probably talking to other trees, right? They're not talking to us. And so they're, to the extent they're talking, they're saying something interesting to some other, conspecific as opposed to us. And so there may be some signal there. So there are people out there. Actually, it's pretty common to say that that human language is special and different from any other animal communication system. And I just don't think the evidence is there for that claim. I think it's not obvious. We just don't know what because we don't speak these other communication systems until we get better. I do think there are people working on that, as you pointed out, though, people working on whale speak, for instance. Like, that's really fascinating.
Let me ask you a wild, out there sci-fi question. If we make contact with an intelligent alien civilization and you get to meet them, how hard do you think how surprised would you be about their way of communicating? Do you think it'd be recognizable? Maybe there's some parallels here when you go to the remote drive.
I would want Dan Everett with me. He is amazing at learning foreign languages, and so this is an amazing feat, right? To be able to go. This is a language, which has no translators before him. I mean, he was a missionary with them. Well, there was a guy that had been there before, but he wasn't very good, and so he learned the language far better than anyone else had learned before him. He's good at. He's a very social person. I think that's a big part of it, is being able to interact. So I don't know. It kind of depends on this species from outer space, how how much they want to talk to us.
There's something you can say about the process he follows. Like, how do you show up to a tribe and socialize? I mean, I guess colors and counting is one of the most basic things to figure out.
You start that. You actually start with like objects,
Yes.
and just say, you just throw a stick down and say stick, and then you say, what do you call this? And they do this, and then they'll say the word whatever. And he says the standard thing to do is throw two sticks, and then he learned pretty quick that there weren't any count words in this language because they didn't know this wasn't interesting. I mean, it was kind of weird. They say some or something, the same word over and over again. And so, but that is a standard thing. You just like try to. But you have to be pretty out there socially, like willing to talk to random people, which these are, really very different people from you. And he's very social. And so I think that's a big part of this is like, that's how, a lot of people know a lot of languages is they're willing to talk to other people.
That's a tough one. We just show up knowing nothing.
Yeah. Oh God.
It's beautiful that humans are able to connect in that way.
Yeah.
You've had an incredible career exploring this fascinating topic. What advice would you give to young people about how to have a career like that or a life that they can be proud of?
When you see something interesting, just go and do it. Like I do that. That's something I do, which is kind of unusual for most people. So like when I saw the Pirahã was available to go and visit, I was like, yes, I'll go. Yeah. And then when we couldn't go back, we had some trouble with the Brazilian government. There's some corrupt people there. It was very difficult to go back in there. And so I was like, all right, I got to find another group. And so we searched around and we were able to find the Chamani because I wanted to keep working on this kind of problem. And so we found the Chamani and just go there. We didn't have contact. We had a little bit of contact and brought someone. And that was, we just kind of just try things. I say it's like a lot of that just like ambition, just try to do something that other people haven't done. Just give it a shot is what I do that all the time.
I love it. And I love the fact that your pursuit of fun has landed you here talking to me. This was an incredible conversation. That you're just a fascinating human being. Thank you for taking a journey through human language with me today. This is awesome.
Thank you very much, Alex. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks for listening to this conversation with Edward Gibson. To support this podcast, please check out our sponsors in the description. And now, let me leave you with some words from Wittgenstein. The limits of my language mean the limits of my world. Thank you for listening. I hope to see you next time.
There's two people on the back, two of her homegirls wearing like shiesty masks. I'm like, what are we doing? Well, where are we going? And she goes, we're going to go film the riot. We're going to Lake Street. And so we drive down there. Kmart is burning. Target is burning. Everything is on fire. She has the Sony A7. She gives me a microphone and she's like, go talk to that guy. And that was the guy with a Molotov cocktail in his hand who had just burned Kmart down. And so I go, what should I ask him? She goes, what's on your mind? So I walk up to him and I'm like, what's on your mind?
The following is a conversation with Andrew Callaghan, host of Channel 5 on YouTube, where he does Gonzo-style interviews with fascinating humans at the edges of society. The so-called vagrants, vagabonds, runaways, outlaws, from QAnon adherents to fish heads to O-Block residents, and much more. He created the documentary that I highly recommend called This Place Rules on the undercurrents that led to the January 6th Capitol riots. This is the Lance Truman Podcast. To support it, please check out our sponsors in the description. And now, dear friends, here's Andrew Callaghan.
I tried to color match you, though. Got the black and white going. I went to Walmart before this and got the Wrangler shirt with the Texas Longhorns tee.
Is that where you shop, Walmart?
Generally, yeah.
I'm a Target man myself.
There's no way you get those suits from Target.
So you're saying it's a nice way to compliment a suit?
I think you go Men's Warehouse, if not further.